This is Antoinette James, one voice belonging to We the People. The Christchurch Massacre. When I heard the news, I smelt a rat. I have spent over 2 years down the elitist rabbit holes, learning their globalist elite culture, their globalist elite practices, and most of all, their absolute hate for the freedoms experienced by the common man. This clearly pre-planned massacre and the mop-up by our government has been a horrifying unfolding. I have to say condolences should have been given to New Zealand as a whole, not just exclusively the Muslim community, because that implied that a section of New Zealanders were implicit in the op. That said, I and all New Zealanders stand together to cry and support the Muslim community because they were targeted. We the people, Muslim and non-Muslim, need to cast our eye above ourselves to those who govern us. They are to blame. The blood is on their hands. Our government, led by Ardern, shut down free speech, shut down every New Zealander, treated us like babies at preschool. We, the New Zealand people, need to be asking Jacinda Ardern and the extremely cowering opposition parties to explain themselves. My question is, who is Ardern? She moved extremely swiftly up the political ladder, like all groomed politicians before her. Well, we know she was well apprenticed in the UK under the warmonger Tony Blair and his cabinet. She's got very strong connections with Freemasonry in New Zealand and in the UK. She was part of the review process in the Stalker affair in the UK and also the police pedophile accusations as well. Throughout the West, the police force and Masonic Masonry hold hands. They have done for decades. It's no wonder they got one of their own. Ardern got into power because of Winston Peters, who decided to make his coalition with Labour, although the majority of the country expressed a desire for the status quo. National, far from perfect, but had got the country into a pretty good economic situation. And the country wanted National, our more conservative government, to carry on. Backroom deals were made, and like the Australian newspapers said, there was a coup and Labour got into power. Soon after, in 2018, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton visited, and just very recently, in fact days before the massacre in Christchurch, John Podesta, Hillary's campaign chairman, her campaign manager, visited the country and alluded to a security risk for the country. No surprises, the day before the massacre, Facebook had gone down for maintenance to make sure that they were more secure in areas. Unfortunately, or maybe by plan, they weren't able to prevent the live streaming of the incident. However, this worked to Ardern's benefit because she was then able to put prison sentences on any citizen that dared look at the video or share it or make any major comment on it, that they would go to jail for a longer sentence than someone who had murdered, and started talking about white supremacists. The Christian far right was starting to be bandied around on Facebook. I entered some of those conversations myself and found very emotional conversations taking place there. Jacinda miraculously was able to present some gun reform ideas within days of the massacre that would have taken months to prepare, suggesting that she knew well in advance that this was going down. We, the New Zealand people, need to hold our globalist-owned media to account. New Zealand was used as a prop for the anti-gun lobby in America by the usual suspects. CNN linked Trump to the shooting as if somehow it was his fault. In the process, they lost 17% of their viewers from this time last year, and a staggering 31% of people aged between 25 and 54. The left-wing, secular, liberal, globalist propaganda tool, mainstream media, they'll hang on to that narrative until the last minute. We, the people in New Zealand, need to think logically. We need to think objectively. We need to rise up from our dumbed-down programming of 10, 15 years in socialised education and think think for ourselves. Did this really happen organically, or was it choreographed from above? This gunman came from Dunedin, and he decided that he was going to target Christchurch. Or was it decided for him? Why wasn't Auckland chosen? Well, I suggest to you it is the financial hub of the country, so we couldn't damage that. Why wasn't Wellington chosen? I suggest to you that's the political hub of the country, and we couldn't damage that. In February 2011, 8 years ago, Christchurch had earthquakes, which changed the nature of Christchurch forever, really. It's still a vulnerable city. A lot of new people have gone to live in Christchurch, taking up opportunities and making it a great city again, but it's still in that transition stage. There isn't a lot of cohesiveness there, and I suggest to you that it was targeted because of the ease to socially engineer the city. You might think, how does the whole city get socially engineered? You just need to look at some of the UK cities like Plymouth that were socially engineered, particularly in its architecture, after World War II. There's several objectives from this false flag. Unify the people to think globally so that we can identify with America and Sweden and other countries that have had these atrocities forced upon them by outside globalist factions. And clearly no country's too big, no country's too small to be used to their ends. I was attacked by one Steve McCabe on my We Are Revolting Facebook page shortly after I put out a post saying this is a false flag. I put it out because I didn't want New Zealanders to be ashamed of themselves. I wanted people to be aware that there were hands behind this. I know most people are what I call Plato's cave dwellers. I know this because I was one before I shook off the chains and came out into the light and actually understood the truth instead of back in that cave being spoon-fed a narrative that actually was not real. I wanted just to digress to put something into context here because it's really, really important. Steve, through the usual theme of the month, slandered me as a white supremacist on the thought that he had read my book, and clearly it was a white supremacist book. Well, Steve should have gone to Specsavers. We Are Revolting is a book written for we the people. My multicultural cover, had Steve looked at it, is far from white. We need to be brave. We need to speak out against tyranny from above. Do not let the fear of slander stop you. We the people are the 99%. We are all colours, all cultures, and all creeds. We Are Revolting exposes the assault on the West. Newsflash, the West is not exclusively white, and it never has been. I think it's a microaggression on his behalf. Does he think the West is white, or worse, does he think it should be white? It is very important to understand, in the light of the assault we experienced in New Zealand in March 2019, that the West is not a colour. The West is an ideology based on the Bible, the Bishop's Bible, the Pilgrim's Bible, and the King James Bible. In short, the West is Protestant Christian. You look at the most prosperous countries in the world, they are those Protestant Western countries. But the neat thing is that they are open for business for anyone, regardless of their colour or their religion. Everyone prospers because it's the ideology of freedom. And this is what's in jeopardy in New Zealand now because of this atrocity, this operation that went down that was choreographed probably a year ago. Who would know? Our freedoms are being whittled away at. The globalists are desperate to get our island up to globalist speed and crush those freedoms because New Zealand has always punched above its weight. It is time for New Zealanders to wake up. I can't remember who said it, but someone said vigilance is the burden of the free. We need to be vigilant. There's going to be more chaos ahead of us with the Brexit gridlock and the EU holding on to the UK with all their might, and Trump in power, causing the middle class to burgeon in America. The elite's Sauron-shaped eye is upon us, this jacked up organized event that murdered 49 people will play out again and again and again while the people are sleeping. And if we are so shamed that we cower and look to our government to be told what to think, to be told what to say, to lose our freedoms, they will go very fast. Let me finish with quoting James. He's a journalist on the BBC Breaking News a few days after the attack. And this is what he said. What is really interesting is that the video provides further evidence that this was hugely organized. Those who have watched it say it clearly. He is almost planned. When he is going to say something into the camera, when he is going to shoot, it's almost as if he has planned the angle of the shot that he is going to take, which shows an astonishing degree of planning that has gone into this thing. Smacks of a false flag operation. In some of the video, you can see what experts term as handlers in red boiler suits. It seems to be very much choreographed. My next video on the subject is going to be titled False Flags and Red Flags. If you like this, share, push the like button, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.